Well, hello, and it's time for episode 19 of the Condescending Evangelist. So, what have we learned? Trump's basically said, and I don't want this channel to be all about politics, but I'll talk about politics when I see it, kind of cross over into the prophetic, which is what I kind of see happening. Trump basically said, Iran, no nukes. Iran, you get no nukes. And he's not ruled off the table boots on the ground. He didn't say that specifically. But everything's on the table, I would assume, which would include boots on the ground. And you say, that's going to be a mess. That's going to be a quagmire. Trump, this is the one concern I have. Trump's been out there saying, he said it, that going to war in Iraq was a mistake. However, is Trump full of pride? I would have handled it differently. Meaning, even if we did have boots on the ground, it would have been different. I don't know. All I'm saying is, it seems like there's an ultimatum that's been reached. War with Iran is not off the table. And when you say fighting, like that's the term, he's not going to come out and say we're going to war until it actually happens. He's definitely being very measured in his rhetoric. What I'm saying is there was an alteration that's occurred. He's basically said, fight. Willing to fight for Iran to not have a nuke. In essence. Well, that's military action. That's boots on the ground. That's how I take it. Not meaning it's going to happen, but that's how I take it. I think he may also be doing this. He might be testing some of the Republicans. Could be part of what's going on. But see, the question I've been asking, is Iran close to a weapon? A nuke? What I've heard is they weren't even enriching weapons-grade uranium. It's all been energy grade, which is lower level uranium. So if they were even enriching weapons grade, that means they're still years away. All of a sudden, they're close to. Have they been enriching weapons grade uranium in the last 10 years? Because I've heard nothing regarding that. So it makes no sense to me. This really makes no sense unless Trump is testing the Republicans. That's what I think might be going on. Well, because, think about this too. Ezekiel 38:39. There's a playbook. The Albert Pike plan. I think there is a desire to start World War III. And so Trump may be baiting the Republicans a little bit. That could be what's going on. I'm not saying this is what's going on. I'm saying that could be what's going on. Because the one thing that hasn't made sense to me, I mean, all of a sudden, Iran can't have a nuke. Are they close to getting weapons grade? Have they been enriching weapons grade uranium? Because you need to do that before you can even start building a nuke. Because that's what I've been hearing is they've been enriching energy grade. But they're just trying to build a nuclear energy facility. So that's why I'm wondering, is there something else going on? It does dovetail into the prophetic. We know in the prophetic, in Scripture, that Ezekiel 38:39. And I believe that's not the same as Armageddon. I think some might think it is, but I don't think it is. But I could be wrong. It could be the same. I'll have to study it again at some point. I should be studying it, but I'm doing other things. I'm following Torah. I'm also finishing Paul's epistles. So once I'm done with all that, I think I'm going to study Ezekiel 30 and 39. Get into it for real. Because I do think it's part of the playbook. Well, I mean, God has his playbook, obviously. But see, those who are Freemasons, they would take some of what's in the scriptures and try to carry them out. For what purpose? Well, get off God's timeline. Why do you think Christmas and Easter were set up for real? Those are two paganized holidays. I think in part to get people off of God's calendar. I think it worked because Christians fight over Christmas. And I can't figure that one out. Once you become aware of what the truth is, that it's a pagan holiday. It's Saturnalia. It's basically celebrating the Antichrist. You don't want to have anything to do with that. You shouldn't want to have anything to do with that. Once you come into that knowledge of the truth. And yet, what do we see? And so, same thing. Iran. We know Iraq was a disaster. Anyone thinks Iran's going to be a walk in the park? I don't. And so I think Trump would know it wouldn't be a walk in the park. So I think he's playing some sort of game here. He's trying to extract the neocons, ultimately. That's what I think is going on. It's got to be what's going on. Because, look, I'm not all on board with MAGA. I'll be honest. I got issues with MAGA. I wear this hat in part because it's red and it says Cheers on it. Oh, where's Cheers located? Boston, right? Let's see. You had the Boston Massacre. I think that came before. I want to say that happened before the Boston Tea Party. And see, the American Revolution, there's problems with that. You know, I think America has in its history, you have the Pilgrims who I think were genuinely trying to leave England because of persecution, actual persecution. But then you have Jamestown too. Something else is going on there, because the first slaves came in through Jamestown. So almost simultaneously, Jamestown settled in 1619. Plymouth settled in 1620. Pretty close. Tells me something prophetic is going on there. And see, when you look at, like I said, first of all, the Salem witch trials. That's just north of Boston. You have the Boston Massacre. You have the Boston Tea Party. You also had the Great Awakening occur in New England. So there's more going on, is what I'm trying to say. Something prophetic is going on. When you have slavery, you have this dichotomy that exists. Early in the country. And, well, it still exists today, I think. Well, I think you could say it's been going on throughout history. But it seems like we're reaching a climactic point. We're getting closer. What's going on with the Middle East right now? You have a nation that is a theocracy, Iran. The people are oppressed. There's no question about that. Then you got Israel. There's something else going on in Israel. Because are they oppressors to a certain extent? Some would say no, because the Palestinians, look, they're Arabs. They can exist anywhere. Israel is the Jews. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, the Jews, right? Do you know that Israel is made up of 12 tribes and Judah is one tribe? Ephraim. This gets back to who is Ephraim? The Pilgrims. Some say, well, what about what about Jamestown? What about them? They're slaveholders. They're Judah. Judah, along with his other 10 brothers, well, it would be 9 brothers because I think Benjamin was the younger brother of Joseph, sold Joseph into slavery. So if anything, the Jews, Judah, are more Jamestown, are connected to Jamestown in that way. They're more like the Arabs. Joseph would be more like Ephraim. Well, Ephraim was one of Joseph's sons. They're by America, the Pilgrims. So you have a dichotomy in America that's not too different from what's going on in Israel, in the Middle East in general. You look at Iran. Iran's Persia. Gets you into what's going on in Ezekiel 38, 39. That's connected to Babylon because it's part of that statue. You know, Persia is the shoulders and arms in the statue. The Medes and the Persians. The shoulders and their arms. Shoulders and arms of silver. The head of gold is Babylon. And so, ultimately, when you're speaking prophetically, well, that also means America has that dynamic too. Well, it's Jamestown. That's what I see Jamestown, which is, you could say, it's just south of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is essentially an extension of Rome, which is an extension of Greece, which was an extension of Persia. That's where we are. So everything that's going on, as I see it, is prophetic. Israel, the current state of Israel, is also, because like I said, they ignore Ephraim. They'll say, wait, America. No. Washington, D.C. is Judah. They're ignoring Ephraim, New England, which connects to where I live, by the way, Illinois. It's not an accident that Lincoln came out of Illinois to free the slaves, in essence. That's not an accident, because Illinois is connected to New England. Now, then you have Chicago. Well, Chicago is taking on the role of Judah in a lot of ways. Chicago is more of an oppressor within the context of Illinois. Not too dissimilar from Boston, where the Boston Massacre happened in the Boston Tea Party. A lot of people will take what I'm saying and say, you're anti-American. Now, I'm actually anti-Enlightenment. The Enlightenment, what it does is it masks, it denies the prophetic. I'm shining a light on the prophetic. Because like I said, Illinois, where Lincoln came out of, is connected to New England. It's also connected to Virginia, too, by the way. But see, Lincoln was from Kentucky, which is right next to Virginia. He was raised in Indiana. That was also at one point part of Virginia. And then he made his career in Illinois, in the part of Illinois that was once part of Virginia. But see, northern Illinois, where was he nominated? Chicago. Northern Illinois is connected to New England. Chicago, at the time, that's where he was the first, I don't know if he was the first Republican to be nominated for president. He was the first Republican to become president. Now you think about it, the Democrat Party, they set up the KKK. So they were definitely the party of slave. They're like the Arabs. They're more like the Palestinians thereby. Well, than the Jews. What about see, like I said, this gets into what's going on in Israel for real. They call themselves a Jewish state. What's the problem back there? Well, ignore the lost tribes of Israel, the northern tribes of Israel. Northern tribes of Israel. The Pilgrims. New England. Northern Illinois. NIU? They were in the MAC for many years. Guess who's joining the MAC this year? UMass. The Minutemen. See, NIU is leaving the MAC next year. Go to the Mountain West. Wait a second. UMass. They're in New England. Yeah, the Minutemen. They're joining the MAC. See, NIU, they're leaving the MAC to go to the Mountain West. What's in the Mountain West? UNLV. Oh. Vegas, right? Nineveh. Ephraim. See how it all connects? Yeah, it does. It absolutely does connect. Nineveh, of course, the eclipse went right through, was it 7 cities called Nineveh? Carbondale, which is in the area referred to as what? Little Egypt. Well, in DeKalb, downtown DeKalb, there is a theater called the Egyptian Theater. Ephraim has already been infiltrated. It all connects. I don't care what anyone tells me. It all connects. And so, see, I talk about the Enlightenment. The problem I have with the Enlightenment is it shines a light, right? It's called the Enlightenment, on how great America is. But what does it actually do? It whitewashes the true history. America's not that great. Make America great again? America's never been great. No nation. Every nation thinks they're greater than they really are. Has America done good things? Yeah. Every nation does. The problem is, America, we're full of pride. We're full of pride and arrogance. That's the truth. Esau gave up his birthright for a bowl of soup, in essence. Remember the Texas state president with his soup about the pack? Got dynamic going on with the pack in the Mountain West. I'm telling you, it ties to this, what I'm talking about. They're trying to get Memphis. You know what Memphis is? They've been trying to get UNLV too. You know what Memphis is? That's what the capital of Egypt was in biblical times. They even played games for a long time in the pyramid. The point all I'm trying to point out is the prophetic is we're watching it. Where you're following what's going on in the Middle East, or where you're following what's going on with college conference realignment. I see the prophetic going on, playing out in real time. And see, I might say things about Trump. People won't agree. I don't care. I'm going to piss off people, Trump supporters, and people who hate Trump. I'm going to be equal opportunity when it comes to that. Why? I serve the Most High. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. I know I don't have many friends because of my views. I know that. It's because of my views. I don't have many friends. But see, I see things playing out prophetically. I'm not trying to boast. God's given me insights that no one understands. I barely understand them. But it's I see what's going on. And like I said, I look at what's going on in college football, conference realignment. I see prophetic things going on there too. Like I said, where I live in northern Illinois, it was claimed, it's an area claimed by areas in Connecticut and Massachusetts, New England. Okay? The Pilgrims, which basically settled in New England, they are Ephraim, as far as I'm concerned. Jamestown, I think, is Judah. Because they're slaveholders. Judah sold his brother, along with the other brothers, sold Joseph into slavery. But he was kind of the ringleader when it came to that. And that's why I view, because when you talk about the story of the prodigal son, for example, who's the older son? Who's the father? It's actually Jacob. I think it's Jacob. Who's the son in the story? I think it's Judah. Who's the younger son? Ephraim. And see, Virginia, like I said, it extended all the way to the Mississippi River, central and southern Illinois. Basically, I think as far north as Bloomington. I want to say Bloomington, maybe Peoria, maybe LaSalle, maybe as far north as LaSalle is how far Virginia settled. And territory that was in northern Illinois, it was like Wisconsin and northern Illinois, Massachusetts claimed, and then Connecticut also claimed a portion of northern Illinois too. And it's interesting. UMass is joining the MAC this year. So NIU and UMass will be in the same conference for 1 year. But then NIU goes to the Mount West. NIU is Ephraim. Because who's in the Mount West? UNLV, Vegas. I'm telling you, that's how I see it playing out. You say, well, does that mean like NIU is ultimately going to go back to the MAC? Maybe. Or they go to the conference at some point they belong, whatever it is. Point is, they're like the wild olive tree as I see it right now. They're Ephraim. America is Ephraim. At least the Pilgrims, the real forefathers. I don't view the Jamestown. They're, like I said, you could say, well, yeah, they're Judah. Like I said, Judah sold his brother into slavery. At some point, you people in the South need to wear that. You just need to wear it at some point. A lot of you, I think, try to play that game like you're the ones that are oppressed. You kidding me? I've been to the South. You guys have no idea what oppression is. Which is why I will mock MAGA. Because I think a portion of MAGA is that lame brain, two-faced Southern mindset. Not all the people in the South are bad people, don't get me wrong. But if you speak with a Southern drawl, it's two-faced. That's how I see it. Because you think you're cool like that. Yeah. It's great to be white. I can see right through that. It's unseemly. It really is. Let me look at scripture here. Go to Matthew 26. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests, and said unto them, What will ye give me, and I will deliver him unto you? And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. And from that time he sought opportunity to betray him. Now the first day for the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying unto him, Where wilt thou be prepared for thee to eat the Passover? And he said, Go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, The master saith, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Okay. That was Matthew 26:14 to 19. Now, the point I want to make is love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And I want to talk a little bit about this week's portion. What I'll share the scriptures in it. Well, you know what? You could I'll put the this week's portion in the description. You can look it up. You can watch the Parsha in 60 seconds. It's on that page. It'll be on that page. I just want to make something clear here, because we're going through a time now. I think Trump is testing. He's running a play. I'm starting to come to that conclusion, because see, there's statics and dynamics that have been going on in this country for a long time, and I think Trump wants to get rid of them. There's certain statics and dynamics that have existed. A lot of it's our deep state doing things, but a lot of it's also people just stuck in a rut. I can tell you this from my own personal standpoint. I feel like I'm stuck in a rut. But part of it is like, I think I have insights that no one understands. And it's kind of put me in a difficult position, because, boy, if I can understand this, no one else can. How do I explain this? That's why I do this channel in part. Because I see things that no one else sees. It seems obvious to me, but it's like, if you don't really understand the scriptures, I think that's part of the issue. And, it's like I said, the pilgrims, when they came here, I think they are Ephraim. I think Jamestown, that's Judah. I think I have a problem with those of us up north. We do have a problem with people in the south, because I think people in the south view the people in the north as oppressors, and we're laughing at you when you say that, because it's like, you guys own slaves. Not many people own slaves. But yeah, but your states own slaves. And then, people will point to the Civil War didn't have to be fought, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the Civil War could have been avoided if the Continental Congress addressed the issue head on. Why didn't they? And that gets in a whole deal. People will point to Scripture. People in the South, in particular, will point to the Scriptures. Well, slavery was allowed in the Bible. Yeah, if you understand what was going on, though, it was people who committed crimes against individuals that were made slaves, and they were still supposed to be treated humanely. That's not what was going on in the South. Just like what was going on in the South is no different from what was going on with the Hebrews in Egypt. The irony. Africa, right? They were the original slave holders. Egypt. So I talk about Carbondale, the eclipse, going through Little Egypt. I don't think that's a coincidence. It's part of the whole prophetic narrative, as I see it. and so the issue as I see it, there's still this divide. Now, what I notice, like, what's the problem here? I think part of the reason that the South may justifiably view America, or view the North in particular, the Democrat areas, which are mostly in the North, as oppressors. This is where they're right. Abortion. This is where they're right. Because abortion on demand, that is a major problem. And those, look, I'm pro-life. I think abortion, I agree. I tend to agree with Trump. Only 3 exceptions: life of the mother, incest, rape, and what was the third one? Maybe it was incest and rape. Maybe it was those 3: life of the mother, incest, rape. I think it was those 3 were the exceptions. It's like less than 2% of all abortions. Economics, that's not a good reason. It's less than 6% of all abortions are economics, due to economics. And it's over 90% of women who have abortions go through post-abortion trauma. So to me, it's like, okay, there's really only so many abortions that should be legal. Even Bill Clinton said abortion should be legal but rare. Well, that's not the case. It's not rare. So it should only be legal in certain circumstances. Life of the mother, incest, rape. But see, we can't even have this conversation. Because even people in the South will say, or just people who are overly conservative will say no abortion whatsoever. Like, you're going to make someone who was raped carry that kid? I wouldn't. Or someone who, engaged in stupid behavior with a cousin or a sibling. No, you don't want that. Life of the mother. Do what you can to save the baby. But you have to remove the baby. You have to do what you can to save the mother. So that's a tough one. That's probably the toughest one of all. But you do what you can to save both, I think. Yeah. I don't mean to be harsh toward the people in the South. It's just I spent time down there doing ministry, and I personally, I forgive those people, But I've never had an experience like I had back in the year 2000. And it was, I have to say, they were definitely two-faced because, well, they weren't critical of my second team. So then I thought about it, I was like, well, I wasn't the problem then. What was the problem? It was probably something that was going on. They could see a problem with us internally, I think. I just wish that, if you could see that, talk to us. Talk to one of us. That's why I have low respect for people in the South. That's just what it is. And then, of course, you are responsible for W, like it or not. You can blame us for Obama, but Iraq was on W's watch, and Afghanistan. And Obama was atrocious at managing those two wars. And then, of course, he's responsible for all kinds of other problems, but both were horrific. Trump, I give him credit for trying to fix things. But it does seem like this. This is all I'm going to say this about Trump. This is where I'm going to piss some people off. Ever since COVID, I don't see a difference between him and the others. I'm just saying I haven't yet seen a difference. I mean, I see what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. He said that'd be done in one day. Nope. And then what's going on with Iran is Israel. That's on his watch. And I'm not a fan of his rhetoric. That's all I'm saying. We haven't got involved yet. I mean, we are involved, but not military, not boots on the ground yet. I know he's got the ultimatum, no Iranian nuke. I get that. But the last thing we need is another endless war. And he campaigned on that. And so, look, COVID changed things. That was a game changer. But he just fell right in line. He inserted $6 trillion right into the system. So that caused a lot of the inflation that occurred. Biden was a moron, doofus, but Trump was the one who put that money in. Now, he probably was thinking in his second term, he was going to manage things in such a way so that that money was going to be used for things that were needed. Then what happens? The Democrats get in there and they take that money and they create all kinds of nonsense. And Doge is what discovered that. But it's like, oh, that's part of the plan. No, all the executive orders that Joe Biden signed. And then the big, beautiful bill, what is that? Oh, we just need to get back to 2017, blah, blah, blah. But we're spending more. I'm like, there's no change here. I don't see anything different. I see people ripping on Rand Paul. I'm like, and then we're back to where we were. There's no difference. We're back to 2003, it's basically October 7th, 2021 was 9/11 in essence then. History goes in cycles. I do know this. I think Trump was trying to change all that. He can't. That's God's doing. God's the one who set everything in motion in that way. So Trump could think he could change that. It's like, no, you're not changing the prophetic arrangement of stuff. That's not changing. So like I said, it doesn't matter who the president is. It really doesn't. But I will say this. History will paint a different picture as we go forward. Just pondering if there's anything else I have to say. Shabbat Shalom.
Goodbye, Toledo.